You know that Bluey is going to have a daughter in the future, but what nobody told you is that they're actually twin pups. Are you ready to meet the complete family of the little healer dog? The twins. Bluey is going to have twin daughters, and you can be sure of that. Even though this is still just a fan theory, you need to understand how the show works and why this idea isn't far from reality. In the world of Bluey, we follow two sisters who play and learn as they grow up. We're talking about Bluey and Bingo. Since Bluey will have a daughter in the future that we call Roxy, this little pup needs an adventure partner. In other words, the puppy we see at the healer family's door in the future is only one of Bluey's pups. She can't go on adventures alone, you know? The show wouldn't work that way. And her sister, whom we're going to call Pinky, is very special because she's pink. Don't worry, we'll explain why in just a little bit. Now, if you want to understand why the two of them are twins instead of being a few years apart like Bingo and Bluey, it's actually pretty simple. They need to attend the same school because that would make the series much easier to build around. But we'll talk more about that in a little while because we have a lot to show you. So grab your popcorn and get comfy on the couch. Another Cinewave is starting. Color. You may be wondering how exactly Bluey, who is blue, is going to have a pink daughter when everyone knows her husband is going to be Mackenzie, a black and white dog. It doesn't seem to make much sense, does it? But this is where you're mistaken. Pinky will have that color for a very simple reason. She's not exactly a pink puppy, she's actually a red healer just like Bingo and Chili. Don't worry, we're not going to give you a boring science lesson, but there is something we can explain. Bluey's breed is called a cattle dog, or the famous healer. The normal color for this dog is the red version, like Bingo. That's why Bluey's oldest uncle, Uncle Radley, has both colors. In Bluey and Bandit's case, they're a rare version of the same dog. Pinky will be a red healer, but because she's Bluey's daughter with a border collie, her fur color ends up being lighter. That's why we see her fur as pink, but in reality, she's just lighter than the others. That's pretty cool, right? Fur. There's also another version of the theory we just explained. The one that says Bluey's second puppy will be albino. For those who don't know what that means, here's an easy explanation. Imagine that our bodies are coloring books and that when we're born, nature uses a special paint called melanin to color us in. That paint is what gives some people black hair or blue eyes. Albino people, like Pinky in this theory, aren't born with that paint. It's almost as if nature forgot to color them in. The theory says that maybe Pinky is an albino puppy and that's why her fur looks pinkish. Of course, this theory would need to explain why Roxy is an albino too, since they're twins and as we've already seen, Roxy has dark fur. And if you're wondering how one twin can have dark fur while the other doesn't, just know that this example already exists in Bluey. Bentley, who is one of Bingo's school friends, has a twin sister named Zara. One of them is white and light brown, while the other is white and black. So it's not exactly something new. Bingo. But we also have some slightly sad news that fans probably won't like very much, although it's important to talk about. Bingo probably won't appear very much in season 5. Almost nobody noticed this would happen, but it's an important detail that everyone should pay attention to. You don't see Uncle Stripe appearing very often in the show, do you? Of course, his house is somewhere else and his family is busy doing other things. Do you see why this gives Bingo a reason not to appear in many episodes? The series will be about Bluey and her daughters. Bingo will definitely visit her nieces, but don't expect to see the little red healer all the time because, unfortunately, that's probably not going to happen. Would you like to see Bluey's sister appear more often in the series? Comment the hashtag Bingo so we can get to know you. Time. Another thing you need to understand is that Bluey's season 5 will be a time jump into the future, and that's important because season 4 hasn't even premiered yet, but we already know why the jump would happen during the 5th phase of the series. Season 4 will cover important topics such as Bluey's teenage years, the birth of the new cousin, Chili's memories of her mother, and Bingo changing schools. That's why we need a season before the time jump, to prepare for Bluey's growth, where we'll see her as an adult character. You need to get used to grown-up Bluey, and when Roxy and Pinky are born, it will mark a generational shift, where Bluey's daughters become the main characters while their mom raises them with all the love and care that we saw from Bandit and Chili. That's pretty cool, don't you agree? Surfing. One thing you can be sure of is that Bluey's daughters will play some sports, and our bet is that they'll be surfers. You probably know that our main character has a yellow belt in karate, just like everyone else in the Garbage Night episode. Bingo, on the other hand, plays field hockey. But it's important to remember that the show takes place in Australia, and a lot of that country's culture is present throughout the series. That's why we're sure the girls' favorite sport will be surfing. You may not know this, but Australia is one of the strongest surfing countries in the world. However, in Bluey, since since the healers don't live that close to the water, we don't see the pups practicing the sport very often. But Bluey could end up living near the beach, and that would be the perfect excuse to show a little more of surfing culture in the series. The only problem would be if Pinky really were albino, because people with that condition can have difficulties with sunlight. They're very sensitive to it, but we're sure she'll be just fine. What do you think? Mom and Dad, can you tell which parent Bluey's daughters will take after the most? We already know that the main character is going to marry Mackenzie. That's almost confirmed, since Roxy is a little puppy who looks very much like a mix between a blue heeler and a border collie. But what about their personalities? Which one of them will Roxy and Pinky take after? Our guess is that Roxy will be completely like Bluey, since in the final scene of the episode Surprise, she's playing the exact same game with Bandit. Now, Pinky will be more like Mackenzie, and that means she's going to love nature. In the episode Mums and Dads, we discover that one of Mackenzie's favorite things to do is dig holes, and that's something dogs really enjoy doing, isn't it? And that actually fits perfectly with the formula of the show. Bluey is the one who loves games and adventures, while Bingo prefers nature. The formula will stay the same, but this time with Bluey's daughters. Chattermax. Do you remember Chattermax? That crazy and colorful toy owl from Bluey that makes a ton of noise, and that Bandit dreams of getting rid of but never manages to. That toy will probably be Bluey's daughter's biggest nightmare in the future. The truth is that Bluey is the only one who actually likes that toy, and everyone around her hates it. One funny thing that could happen in the future is Bluey using Chattermax the same way Bandit uses the unicorn puppet to annoy his daughters, as a way of teaching them whenever they need to learn an important lesson. What do you think about that? The subscribe button is right there, waiting for you. How about clicking and keeping up with everything we post? Unicorse. Still talking about Mr. Healer's annoying puppet, you know that Grandpa Bandit is going to use it a lot to annoy his granddaughters in the future, right? We're sure about that because it's impossible for Unicorse to disappear from the show. We know there's going to be an episode where Bandit's granddaughters want to hear a bedtime story, and since Bandit uses this puppet when reading to his daughters, one future episode will probably feature Mr. Healer using Unicorse to teach his granddaughters something important. Babysitter. Bluey's daughters will also be the stars of what we see as sequels to famous episodes, and Season 5 should introduce a new version of Double Babysitter. You probably remember that in that episode, we saw Bluey's older uncle meeting her godmother, Frisky, so it was basically an episode about romantic love. But who would be the new couple in this story? We're betting on two little dogs who could be a perfect match. Muffin, who is Bluey's cousin, and Chucky, who is Lucky's younger brother and Bluey's neighbor. A lot of people never notice this, but Bluey and Chucky are actually very close. Did you know that? They even go through an adventure together to decide which team they should support, and he would end up babysitting Bluey's daughters. Maybe you're wondering, how exactly would Chucky become the babysitter? Do you remember the ending of the episode Surprise from Season 3? It was Chucky who lent Bluey that ball launcher so she could hunt down Bandit, and Roxy had a toy just like it in the future. Now, what are the chances that Chucky lent that toy to Bluey's daughter? Do you see how that makes sense? Then, on that same day, Muffin could show up to help take care of the girls and end up meeting Chucky. Could the two of them start a relationship? That could work out really well. The Creek. Another thing we're sure about is that Bluey and Mackenzie will take Roxy and Pinky to visit the Creek, that place where Bandit takes his daughters and the border collie to play. The new puppies, especially Pinky, who loves nature, will definitely love visiting that place, but Roxy will probably be a little scared. Pinky is going to love seeing all the insects and lizards. Maybe a kangaroo will show up to give the girls some attention. And maybe you'll stick around with us to learn even more about Bluey's future. What do you think? The fun doesn't stop here. There are 2 amazing videos waiting for you on the screen. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.